Creatures. Nug. Hip deep in mad nugs. Our screams deafen their keen ears. We will be nug poop. From Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear by Paragon Ebrian 584 Exalted. The nug is an omnivore common to the deep roads, a hairless creature that is almost blind as well as completely docile. It spends most of its time wading in shallow pools as well as mud pits, feeding on small insects, worms, and, in a pinch, limestone and simple metals. Indeed, the digestive system of the nug is legendary, able to make a meal out of almost anything a nug finds on the cavern floors. Nugs reproduce rapidly, spreading into any niche within the deep roads they can find, and serve to support a variety of predators such as grey spiders and deep stalkers. So too do dwarves make meals out of them. Nugs are, in the poorer slum portions of Orzammar, one of the most common sources of meat available. Some dwarves even domesticate the creatures, claiming to find the creature's high-pitched squeaks pleasing. Culture and history. Sorry. My voice is going. House Aeducan, Shield of Orzammar. The Assembly has never named a paragon with so little disagreement as there was for Paragon Aeducan. No naysayers, only a single abstention. His worthiness was unquestionable, his favour with the ancestors clear. But family rumour says that the man himself was deeply troubled, prone to fits of melancholy and self-doubt. Never satisfied with his great achievement in protecting Orzammar, he died casting that he hadn't managed to save the outlying dykes. Before he rose to Paragon, he was of little note. The memories tell us that he never entered the single priving, never sought to elevate his place among the warrior caste. He spent most of his years prior to the First Blight fighting skirmishes in the deep roads, keeping them free from the surface bandits, content to live quietly with his wife and daughters. When the Blight began, it caught Orzammar in the midst of a vicious inter-house war. Most of the warrior caste was caught up in the feuding, for as word of attacks poured in, each great house demanded that the army be sent to defend their thike, and no house would agree to sacrifice their own holdings for the safety of any others. The assembly was so utterly tied up with the infighting that the dark spawn spread, unchecked, to the gates of Orzammar herself. In the chaos, Aeducan grudgingly took command of the armies. He enlisted the aid of the mining caste to collapse overground passages, called upon the smith caste to supply them with arms, bypassed the assembly and the nobles entirely. With his leadership, Orzammar was saved from annihilation. For his insubordination, he was made paragon. Yet he always considered it a defeat. From A History of Aeducan, Paragon, King, Peacemaker by scholar Gertek. The Paragons. As I studied among the dwarves, I became aware that their social system was rigid as the stones that surrounded them. From the lowest servant to the king of Orzammar, each dwarf has a caste, a rigid social standing, which dictates what he may do and how he may do it. What fascinated me then was that the dwarves, stubborn and proud as they may be, have built a way for even the lowliest dwarf to bypass the caste system and reach prominence. Any dwarf who has made an achievement of significance can be named paragon, elevating the dwarf above all others. To become a paragon is to be recognized as essentially a living ancestor. Your words are considered ineffable, and the dwarfs liken you unto a god. Your family, those you chose to ascend with you, become the founders of a new line of nobility. Indeed, every existing noble house among the dwarfs traces its line back to a founding paragon. It is a rare thing, however, in my visit I learned that only one paragon has been elected in generations. The Smith Branca exalted for her discovery of smokeless coal. I met the Paragon Branca only once during my stay, and I considered it an odd occasion indeed. Surrounded by those of her house, this ill-tempered woman was draped in the finest clothing and jewellery, and was obviously revered even above the highest nobles, perhaps above even the king, yet she seemed to enjoy none of it. The burden of being a living legend is great, it appears. Statues of the Paragons are found throughout Orzammar. Those nowhere so prominently than in the Hall of Heroes, through which one passes on entering from the surface. It is a breathtaking sight to behold, great works of stone, all seeming to hold up the ceiling above. It is meant to impress upon visitors to Orzammar all who have gone before, I think. It is also meant to remind dwarves going to the surface, and thus abandoning the brethren forever, of what they are leaving behind. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Genitivi, Chantry Scholar. Bhelen Aeducan. This is a time for action, not culture's debate. Third of King Endrin's children, Bhelen has always been considered the last and least of his family. Not the heir, nor the favourite, and not as accomplished as either sibling. Bhelen's most notable trait was his ability to stay out of trouble. Arl Eamon Guerrin. It was no common ailment. Eamon was poisoned by a blood mage, Jaron, who claimed to be working for Tain Logain. The Jarl's life was saved only by the most extraordinary measures, finding the Urn of Sacred Ashes the remains of Andraste herself. Lord Pyral Harrowmont. No one is born with the rights to the throne. The sitting king may recommend a successor, but the assembly ultimately decides who will rule. House Harrowmont is one of the oldest noble houses, as old as Orzammar itself. Endrin's most trusted advisor, Harrowmont is well known for being an able administrator and the author of many compromises in the ever-warring assembly. Quest related. The key to the city. While your concerns of merit, the Assembly has made itself clear. Space within the Thaig is at a premium, but the intended function of the hall merits the additional resources committed. The statues of the Paragons must be the core of the Hall of Heroes. There is no other placement that so benefits dwarven interests. It is the first glimpse of the surface ambassadors have of Orzammar, an introduction not just to our living ancestors, but also to the stone from which we are born. They must see it shaped before they can understand the complexity of its raw form. The hall must also serve a second purpose, as a last sight for the departing brethren. Those who choose to leave must do so with the heavy gaze of their ancestors on their backs. It is a reminder of duty and of consequence. We will promote all manner of trade, but also reinforce that those who leave for too long will return as strangers to the stone. From a report of the Assembly's Zoning Commission. Pursuant to Order 5 LA, whatever that is, no dwarf of the indeterminate caste may conduct business in the commons. This was subsequently clarified by the Assembly to mean that the owning and appropriate operating of stalls or kiosks is limited to those of identified and approved house names with traceable ancestor lineage of at least 3 generations. Exceptions include individual purchases of goods or services from established stores or kiosks, provided the funds are represented at the opening of the transaction at the discretion of the stall or kiosk owner. I am sure you understand the need to maintain strict quality control over all goods and services that flow through Orzammar, especially when we are making a concerted effort to encourage outside investment. The standards of Dusttown and that of the common brand are simply not sufficient. Your trade permit is hereby denied. From a judgment of the Assembly of Trade Council regarding Midal's reclaimed wares. It is agreed that no rules of procedure were explicitly broken, but a 5-day filibuster is nonetheless worthy of censure. Division of House Orzammar property was deliberated for a full session, and forfeiture of the southern estate deemed a necessity. Since the birth of young Cade necessitates his elevation to noble status, and it is unthinkable for a noble's family to live in the slums, it is the responsibility of the father to accommodate the placement of his family. It is not possible to simply generate new space in the Diamond Quarter without compromising Thaig structural integrity. Lotte's comment that if Lord Orzammar didn't want a new heir, he shouldn't have slummed for a concubine was indeed inappropriate, but the proper procedure for resolution through proving was followed. Both parties agreed to accept this retraction, and the matter is considered separate and closed. The decision of the Assembly regarding the placement of the Duncoat clan stands. From a writ of the Assembly Zoning Council regarding the placement of the Duncoat clan. Your efforts have been exemplary, but the self-proclaimed cartels must defer to the Assembly and restore order. Exclusion from caste and society is no excuse. Perhaps suggest that it would be a simple matter to march on a quarter, or simple still to withdraw infrastructure support. A tunnel breach would be most unfortunate, but current policy direction prohibits any deals that would legitimize cartel operations. Downward pressure on certain elements of our society has proven useful in shoring up the economy with an excess of affordable labor. It also encourages enlistment in the Legion of the Dead, the one accepted path to partial redemption and vital force in our weakening front lines. The model suffers when criminals create their own hierarchies with alternative methods of social advancement. Every stone has a face that can't be carved, a site that must be earthward. We need the so-called Dust Town but it would be inadvisable to conclude that in our negotiations. We have the utmost faith in you, Capt. The rest is obscured by bloodstains. From confidential Assembly directive regarding proliferation of cartels. The Shaper's life. Orzammar has carved a legacy from the stone, but history is more than the comings and goings that fill the streets. These caverns are old cuts and well travelled. The true will of the stone is revealed far from the halls of politics and commerce. The Shaper must step away from the familiar and seek out revelations from the frontier or barbaric secrets from paths abandoned. The Shaper must first walk away if he is to return. First steps from the Shaper's life.